Hi, Chris and Amanda. Thanks for meeting up. Can you
Hey, Sylvia.
tell us a little bit about yourselves and your reserve?
Sure. I'll go first. Chris Peter. I'm the research coordinator here at Great Bay National Estuarine Research Reserve in the coast of the small, tiny coast of New Hampshire. And I'll turn it over to Amanda.
And I'm Amanda Giacchetti. I'm the swamp coordinator at the Great Bay National Estuarine Research Reserve in Greenland, New Hampshire. And uh, yeah, I'll let Sylvia give us any questions that she has.
Great. Could you tell us a little bit about what makes your reserve unique or why it got designated?
Sure. I get asked this question a lot, and every great reserve has a great origin story. Ours is probably one of the greatest because that's why we're called Great Bay. But this cartoon here is of Jackie Kennedy, former or later known as Jackie Onassis, and John F. Kennedy, and then the person in the middle is Aristotle Onassis, one of the richest people in the world, a Greek oil tycoon, and they were trying to build an oil refinery in Great Bay. And you can top right corner here, this was what the plans were, similar to be in Great Bay. There's a big outcry from the local community, just basically town residents, and it's kind of a David and Goliath story where just a small town just basically said no to this really one of the richest people in the world, which is obviously connected to the highest political level of the U.S. government. So that's how Great Bay was formed, the origin, and then push further, and this is actually more like 50 years later, we have multiple buildings, we have multiple lands, we have about 10,000 acres of lands and waters. Great Bay is comprised of a huge estuary and a little miniature bay that's recessed from the ocean about 15, 16 miles, which is highly unique. It's one of the most recessed estuaries in the country. It comprises of many different habitats, some salt marshes to seagrass bed to rocky intertidal, to coastal forests. It has a lot of interesting species. It has horseshoe crabs. It has bald eagles, ospreys, anadromous fish, striped bass, seals, and so on and so forth. I don't want to list them all because we'll be here all day. It's an interesting geological formation. It was a drowned river valley, so where the glaciers melted, basically the water level rose and drowned Great Bay. So it's not exceedingly deep except for a couple spots. At low tide, I kind of refer to as Great Mud Flat, and then high tide, I refer to as Great Bay. Um, yeah, and I guess that's more the background that I wanted to go through. Amanda, did you want to add anything before I moved on?
No, I think you hit it on the head with the background. Actually, most of that stuff was stuff I didn't even know about. So good job.
Great, me either. I just read it off the screen now. But before we jump into the next one, like every reserve, we're not just research and science and monitoring, we're also stewardships. We buy land, we manage land, we're education. We have thousands of school kids come here and we teach them about the natural and the cultural history of Great Bay. And we also have a coastal training program, which brings the latest science to decision makers and government to try to enact best management practices around the Bay. Um, yeah, I think I've gone too far, so I'll turn it back to Sylvia.
Great. Can you give us a little overview of your swamp station setup and why your reserve picked the particular parameters it did for research this quarter or this semester?
Sure. So starting off with an overview, this is a map of Great Bay. The ocean is just off the map here on the right. We're located over here on the southwestern portion of Great Bay. All these green dots represent water quality stations. The slightly bigger green dots here are the ones that are involved in swamp, which we'll focus on later. But before we jump into that, I did want to give a little bit background of what we measure. So we measure the physical, chemical qualities of the water. We also have a weather station on the eastern side of Great Bay right here. And then we do some biological monitoring in tandem. We stitch on environmental DNA monitoring onto our four primary stations, and we were looking at fish community and total eukaryotic diversity using sequencing. So that's a really cool program that many reserves are doing. We also look at salt marsh habitats, which is one of our primary key habitats around the bay. Picture here is actually Amanda. We do crab monitoring, so horseshoe crab monitoring, and then there's northern expanding crab species, fiddler crabs and blue crabs that are normally don't live here but are migrating up with temperature shifts. And just focusing it back to Great Bay and the swamp stations that we're gonna be looking at the data for this project, these two ones. So there's our 4 primary stations. Here are the names, not super uniquely named either after the tributary itself or after Great Bay. And these 2 yellow ones are the ones that we have our parameters for. And before I jump into that, I was going to turn over to a past version of Amanda, just give you an idea what a teacher workshop looks like and what the Squamscott River Station looks like right here.
So the sensor pieces actually look very clean. So that's the good thing. Even if the sonde and the sensor bodies are fouled, it just it typically doesn't matter that much, just as long as the faces are nice and clean. So
yeah, so I just wanted to stop it there, and this gives you a sense of like what the environment is. It's at the mouth of a large tidal tributary, the southern end of Great Bay, and very fun to kayak. Before I move on to like why we chose the parameters, I don't know, Amanda, did you want to add anything?
Again, I think you really covered most things. As Chris mentioned, these are our 4 primary swamp stations. However, we have over 10 other stations throughout the Great Bay that we have instruments at the instrument that I have in the video. So we have them all throughout the bay. We have them in coastal waters. We have them in different riverways. So we're definitely sampling all throughout our bay, aside from those 4 key stations.
Great. We got current Amanda and past Amanda. The one thing actually just jogged my memory about is this one in the middle of Great Bay is probably the one that's most representative of Great Bay. It's in the middle. These 2 are at the head of tide. This is where a dam is, and this is where a dam is too, and it's fresher. Obviously not the center of Great Bay. This is at the mouth of a tributary. So this is what we are most representative. However, it was moved. It was located at the surface, and from basically I think late 1990s to 2014. And then it was pushed down to the bottom to match the standardized protocol for all the other stations here and around the country. So that might confound some of the analysis. So that's why in our next couple slides, I'll talk about their parameters. But just to give you context, this one's a little bit confounded by being moved from the top to the bottom. And it's about probably like 20 plus feet depth there. So it's a really deep station. And I guess I'll answer the second part of Sylvia's question. Oh, but before I do that, I have a lot of cool pictures to show. So this is just a picture of our weather station in the winter, which is basically what it looks like today, actually, because it's snowing, which is a rare occurrence in New Hampshire nowadays, unfortunately, because of the climate. This is the southern portion of the Swamp. This is the Squamscott River Station, the southern part of Great Bay here. This is our station right here. We had a tide station out here too. This is Oyster River. It's a tidal tributary near the head of tide. This is the middle of Great Bay, little tiny island here, but this is what I was talking about, the one that got moved from the top to the bottom. This is at the mouth of the Lamprey River on the western part, the tidal tributary. The sonde holders right here. And I guess the last thing, I don't want to jump into that quite yet, but for the parameters we chose water temperature at the Squamscott River because of that confounding issue of that sonde being moved, but we want to understand how temperature is tracking in Great Bay because climate change and human development are the 2 biggest pressures on Great Bay. So we found that climate temperature probably correlates with climate change. We also chose turbidity, total spended sediments, and nitrate at a combination of these 2 stations because they reflect anthropogenic influences from urban development, from wastewater treatment, and that has been a hot topic over the last 10 years because of its impact on seagrass beds. The water clarity has led to deaths of populations of our seagrass beds. Just this year, actually, we had almost artificially higher inputs of these these solutes, because of historic rain in our osprey population, has suffered from it because of the hard ability to hunt in coffee-like water where you can't see down. And a lot of times the parents would come back with freshwater fish that are outside of the bay. So that's a little bit of context, is really just those two big pressures of climate change and human development. And before I talk too long and make this 5-minute video a 10, I was going to see if Amanda has anything to add before I have one last slide to present.
No, Chris, I think I'm good to have you wrap it up and say the last final words.
Great. I love the last final word. So we produce annual water quality reports every year. We just produced one maybe a couple of weeks ago for 2022. So we're a little bit behind because of the way that the data gets collected and it gets quality controlled. So we're usually about 6 months behind. So I'll be producing the 2023 report probably 6 months from now. But these are some good background materials. If you click on this link, or if you type this link in because this is a recording, you can find the past reports here and some more background on our water quality stations. And also feel free to contact myself or Amanda if you have any questions.
Great, thanks. That's a wrap.
Great.